I'm finally caught up with the Fallen Men series by Giana darling. I read Dead Man Walking. This book was about Priest and Bia. If you've read any of the other books in this series, you should know that Bia is Lulu's little sister. Lulu is the wife of the president of the Fallen Men, Zeus Garrow. Priest is the Fallen Men's enforcer. So anytime anyone messes with the club, he's the one who exacts retribution. He's also a little bit of a psychopath, and I will tell you why. Priest is not his real name, by the way. That is the nickname that the Fallen Men gave him when they found him, sort of to be like ironic because he's actually an atheist and cannot stand priests. And it's because he, like I said, he grew up in Ireland in a very small, seemingly rural Catholic town, and his parents, I guess, they were really poor and they didn't have money to get married, and they ended up having him out of wedlock. And then the priest sort of got the whole community to shun his family, and by the time they did have enough money to get married, he wouldn't marry them, and they ended up having a couple of other kids, still really poor, and the whole town wouldn't help them because the priest was like, it's a whole family of sinners, and if you help them, you'll be a sinner too. His whole family ended up getting really sick, and they all like died of consumption, like fever. It felt very old world, but I guess that can still happen in certain areas. And so he ended up like burying his whole family at 10 years old in like a single grave because no one would help when he didn't want to do, and he ended up being taken in by the priest, and just being abused throughout his whole childhood. You actually don't find this out until like towards the end of the book. You get like little snippets of why he is the way he is, but yeah, he spent years, and then when he became a young man, he ended up breaking free of that abuse, and that was actually the first life that he took, was the priest, and then the few men who tried to stop him from leaving. He ended up being taken in by the Fallen Men who are in Canada, and I don't exactly remember how he ended up in Canada, like if they found him when he was in Ireland, or if he found himself in Canada and they found him there. I don't remember. Bia has always had a huge crush on Priest. Everyone calls her his little shadow, because she just like follows him like a little puppy dog everywhere. And she is sugar, spice, everything nice, frills, pigtails, bows, like everything innocent and girly. But she's always been very drawn and attracted to like the dark, the dangerous. Like she, in the beginning of the book, kind of accepts that Priest is never going to reciprocate her feelings, and so she ends up going on a date with this other boy in town who, you know, wears slacks and button-up shirts and is like cookie cutter nice guy seemingly. He takes her to a party and she's like, oh, this guy is just so boring. And then she catches him selling drugs to another kid at the party, and instantly is like, okay, this just got more interesting. Like, she's not at all fazed by it. If anything, she's just like drawn to that sort of bad boy, rugged side. That boy turned out to be Bad News Bears. His family was in the territory selling designer drugs to all these kids and college students, and the Fallen Men, they have the monopoly on that in the area. First of all, I think they only sell marijuana, and that's their territory. So if you encroach on it, you're doing the Fallen Men wrong. And they had warned this kid's parents multiple times, like, hey, this is our territory. Don't sell your shit on our land or it's gonna go bad for you. And they just like didn't listen. He's like, we've been doing this for a long time and they haven't done shit, didn't heed their warnings. So she is being driven home by him and he's trying to put the moves on her, and she's like, I'm not gonna sleep with this guy, but I'll let him take me home. I'll let him flirt a little, it'll be fine. And they end up getting just like, no, they weren't T-boned. Their car blew up while she was inside of it. And Priest was the one who had rigged it to blow because he did not know that she was gonna be with this kid all night. She is like severely injured, but he sees her kind of like half in and half out of the car right before the whole thing explodes. And he saves her. He feels really bad about it. And he's like, wait, why do I all of a sudden feel panic? He's so calm, cool, collected. Like, in fact, blood and like violence, that's what calms him. That's what brings him peace. So he's like, why do I all of a sudden feel like panicked and fear at the idea of this girl just being wiped off the face of this earth by my hands? So he takes her back to the compound. She heals from her wounds over time. Bia also co-hosts a podcast called Little Miss Murder, and it's true crime podcast because she's just super fascinated by all of that stuff. And turns out, surprise, there's a serial killer in town who has hyper fixated on Bia. So she has been getting anonymous letters and notes with body parts of people who have put her in harm's way, or like sinners in the community. So like the mom of the son who was in the car explosion, she comes to her and like kind of apologizes, but also like mildly threatens her. And then like the next day, this woman's like hands are sent to her in a box, and like she just keeps body parts. One day she's doing her podcast and she gets an anonymous call-in from someone that was like super eerie and tells her to look under her desk. She looks and there's a severed head in a plastic bag wrapped up in all of her mic wires. She freaks out. And so the fallen men are clearly like, all right, there's a psycho on the loose who's clearly hyperfixated on Bia. Priest has taken it upon himself to be her personal bodyguard. And he's with her 24/7 unless she is going to church, because he has this thing about religious buildings because of his traumatizing past. She is very forward and honest about her attraction to him. She's like, I know you know, okay? I've liked you for a long time. Everyone in the compound knows it. And he fights it for a long time because he knows they're such polar opposites. He's like, I don't know if I can give you what you need. And if you're with me, in fact, I think it might dim your light a little bit because I'm a murderer. And if you're mine, that means you're a murderer too, because like you'll become a part of me. And so he sort of holds his attraction for her back for a long time for her own good. See how long that lasts, because he does. He gives in. They have a bunch of really hot sex throughout this book. It's also like very gritty because he himself is a very gritty dude. So a lot of it is like knife play. And at one point, he's even like getting her to help him bury a body, because he's like, yeah, see, like if I'm in it, you have to be in it too. If my hands are dirty, your hands have to be dirty. And she's all in, so she's helping him bury a body, and in a cemetery literally like gets down in the muddy dirt and like blows him in the cemetery. And then he takes her like fast, rough, and hard, and she's so into it. And you know what? So was I. Priest throughout this book kind of has like this no touching rule, where most of the time when they are physically intimate, he is as clothed as possible, and she's fully unclothed, okay? And at first she kind of enjoys like the power dynamic of that, but then she realizes, oh, there's a reason he covers up, and it's because he has like all of these scars that he's like trying to cover up from his past abuse. And also, whenever he gets like really stressed or anxious, he will self-harm kind of to like help remember and like ground him. That's something that kind of is with his like psycho tendencies, is whenever he gets stressed, he like cuts his palms, and like the sound of his blood dripping and like hitting the floor kind of relaxes him. There's multiple scenes in this book where he just gets stressed out and just like has to slice and just center. And Bia understands him so much that when she realizes this and doesn't have the full picture yet of why he is the way he is, says, instead of pushing me away when you feel like this, is this something I can help with? Like, if you need the pain to ground yourself, will you let me maybe be the one to hurt you? But in like a loving way, like not in an abusive way, but in like a companionship kind of way. The dynamic is weird for sure, but I thought the sentiment behind it was sweet. So he lets her help him, and it's like a really bonding moment for them. You can just see like the cracks in his hard shattered insides just breaking free a little bit for her. So throughout the book, it's like this big mystery on like who this serial killer could be, because these messages keep popping up and they know that she's not safe. Anyway, she ends up being kidnapped, and you find out that it was the husband of this girl who she went to church with. It was like the town surgeon. Now, he was like a part of the Christian community, and like I said, they all went to church together, but he ended up kind of screwing off and privately creating his own like cult, and he made himself the leader and like had all these followers that he had converted, but it was like he claimed himself to be a prophet, and that God speaks to him, and that people can only find absolution through him, and that God spoke to him saying that Bia was going to be his like one true holy wife. Even though he was already married, he somehow like Jedi mind tricked his wife into being on board with this because it was the Lord's plan. So he made this big elaborate plan to like kind of bait and switch, distract the fallen men and the police so he could kidnap her. And it worked. Priest was very upset about it because he was getting weird feelings from the setup right away, and he tried to stop the police, and then they like tased him and like subdued him, even though he was just trying to save his girl. And they were like, "You're ruining the operation." He's like, "This operation is a sham." So she's kidnapped. She discovers who it is. She's shocked. They tell her the plan, and they have to absolve her of her sins because she's been shacking up with Priest and the fallen men who are sinners. And he's like, "It's fine. The Lord has given me power to cleanse you so that, you know, you can fulfill your one true purpose." So they whipped the shit out of her like Jesus before they crucified him. And when Priest eventually does track her down and he finds her, she's just her back's all ripped up and horrible. And he does his priestly ways, and ends up saving her. He kills the other dude. He kind of like sacrifices himself at first. And this dude is so badass that Bia is all like tied up, right? And like half conscious because of her absolution. And when Priest comes in, it distracts this dude. I can't remember his name. And so then he has a gun to his head, and there's a little boy or a teenage boy behind Bia with like a knife to her side. And he's like, "If you come any closer, we're gonna kill her." And so he's like, he puts his weapons down, and this dude nails Priest's hands to like this wooden wall, and he doesn't flinch. Okay, he's just there like, because mind you, he like self-harms all the time, and it like grounds him. He doesn't mind pain. In fact, pain comforts him. And he's like, "Do whatever you want to me, because if you're doing it to me, it means you're not doing it to her." And that's like the biggest "I love you" from Priest. But like I said, the guy gets cocky, he gets distracted, and Priest is able to like whoosh, take him out. People in town are totally shocked. Our local surgeon, how could he? And then it's happily ever after. One thing I did forget, if you are someone who likes when characters get tattoos for each other, Priest, he takes it a step further. He gets, what is it? Is it like cosmetic scar? It's not cosmetic, but it's like tattooing, but instead of using ink, you just get someone to permanently scar you. Or was it a brand? See, the book amnesia, it has set in. Anyway, it was either a scar or a brand that he got etched with Bia's name over his heart. It obviously didn't hurt because he doesn't feel pain, I guess. But I thought that it was sweet nonetheless. In his psycho, twisted, dark romance way, I was like, he scarred himself for her. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting a bunch of really important details. I waited too long to review this and the book amnesia set in so hard, and so I remember like main plot points. I gave it a 4.5 star. It was super enjoyable. Bia and Priest, they're just dynamic together in her understanding of his dark side, without being like a dark person herself, I felt was really interesting and really refreshing. The spice, spot on, okay? If you like things to be really primal, you don't mind knife play or blood play, I think you would really like this book as well. Would highly recommend this entire series, and now that I'm caught up, I am excited and waiting on bated breath with all the rest of you for book 7 to come out. I can't even remember what that book is going to be called. I know what the book cover is supposed to look like, but yeah, very excited. I still think at this point my favorite book in the series is Welcome to the Dark Side. Zeus Garrow is just the daddiest daddy, okay? He's zaddy, okay? And I love him. And I love him and Lulu together. She's just such a firecracker, but who also like can be that sweetness to his salty. It's just good. This whole series was immaculate. 10 out of 10 would recommend for a spicy, dark motorcycle club romance series. Happy reading.